Well, for more on the merger mania and the rapidly changing media landscape in the US, I'm joined by Ted Johnson. He's a senior editor with Variety's Washington Bureau. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you for having me.
So, lots going on here. Let's start with AT&T and Time Warner. Just how significant is this deal, not just for AT&T's strategy, but the media industry?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies have been waiting for this decision, or had been waiting for this decision to see what the judge would say. And it was such a definitive ruling in favor of AT&T, saying they can proceed with this merger, saying almost that the government really didn't have a case to even block this deal, that I felt it was kind of an invitation to other companies to integrate with, especially when you talk about distribution outlets trying to merge with content companies. I think you'll probably see a lot more of those. So something like Comcast had been kind of waiting for this decision before putting in that offer for the assets of Fox. So yeah, I think that a lot was riding on this ruling.
Now, it's interesting because AT&T has about an estimated debt of about $180 billion, and is also having this challenge of merging its media and telecommunications. What are some of the potential risks that come with this deal?
Well, I think the first risk is the culture. AT&T is a very different culture from Time Warner. That actually came up during the trial, during the antitrust trial, when the government presented evidence that AT&T it was not going to mix with like HBO. There already was some friction there that was happening because AT&T tends to be probably more of a bottom line company. The creative business tends to be a little more of a spendthrift, especially Warner Brothers. That's going to be one of the entities that AT&T owns. Warner Brothers is known as a free spending studio that spends a lot on talent, a lot on perks. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, in the long run under AT&T ownership. Right now in the industry, there's a lot of competition for content and a lot of competition for talent out there. So right. I think AT&T has to be pretty judicious if it's going to kind of put these mandates on the entertainment business.
And when we look at competitors, obviously Netflix comes up, a lot of deep pockets there. What does this deal do for their competition with Netflix?
Well, that was a central argument for AT&T, is that look at Netflix and look at this company that just grew by leaps and bounds almost overnight. We have to compete with them, and we especially have to compete with them when it comes to getting subscriber data. AT&T made the argument that we don't know who's actually watching the Time Warner programming. This merger will help us kind of fuse that information together, and we'll be able to collect user data, and we'll be able to better compete with some of these tech companies that have proven to be enormously popular with consumers. Netflix's growth, I think, in large part is based on the whole idea that it presents consumers with what they want to watch. You go on their interface, right, and you're presented with this an array of programming, and somehow it seems to be, what is of your interest rather than scrolling through this big channel guide.
So then for consumers who are seeing this deal go through and wondering, what's in it for us? What can they expect?
Well, AT&T at the outset said they will get more choices. AT&T recognizes that the days of the huge subscription bundle, subscribers paying $150 a month, may be ending. So everything's moving to streaming, and they recognize that we have to offer cheaper alternatives. So even during the trial, AT&T's CEO, Randall Stephenson, when he was on the stand, he actually announced a new offering that will offer this bundle of channels at a greatly reduced price. However, in the long run, even though the government lost this case, and their case was based on the idea this will ultimately lead to higher consumer prices, there's a lot of public interest groups and probably rivals to AT&T that think that ultimately this concentration of the media will lead to higher prices in the long run.
And so just quickly, obviously we see what's happening with 21st Century Fox's assets. You have this bidding war with Disney and Comcast. Does this AT&T deal open the door for more mergers or perhaps more scrutiny?
Well, I think it definitely opens the door for more mergers. I think that that a lot of companies are going to look at this ruling and say, listen, the government presented its case, it lost. The risk is not as great if we have a similar type of vertical combination to get that through. But I can't see the government saying, oh, well, we're just going to back off and call it a day. Talking to the people over at the DOJ, Makan Delrahim, who's the antitrust chief, I think that he's already been so adamant in what his policy is. I just don't see him backing down even after this setback.
Well, we'll certainly have to stay tuned and see. Thank you so much. Ted Johnson there from Variety's Washington Bureau.